That's your new Instagram name? Forever
Huh?
Katie? That's your new Instagram name? Forever Katie?
Oh no, it's Katie Forever.
Welcome back to another episode of Sober Black Girls Club podcast with your hosts, J, Nicole, and Katie. Katie, what's up? How you doing?
All right, I have a little wig headache.
What's a wig headache?
It's a wig headache is when your wig is too small for your head because your braids underneath grows out, and now like you have a headache, it's too tight. So I kind of have like a little wig headache, but I'm gonna push through and hopefully I can redo my braids. Hopefully I can redo my braids this weekend because clearly I cannot stress out these braids anymore. My head, this wig is hurting me for the past 2 days. Anyways, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm better. That's funny. That's. I mean, it's not funny that your head is hurting, but I guess it's funny because at first it feels good, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, yeah, it's time to switch this up. So I am feeling good. I'm feeling good. Coming off of our last episode was such a powerful conversation with Takia. So again, shout out to her for coming on and just sharing her heart, her love, her wisdom, and all that good stuff. It was just like so many gems dropped. So that was definitely good. And we're gonna just try to get into this conversation today. I actually was just looking at like different things, and this came up, and I was like, wow, like that was actually a thought. It obviously was back in 1939, but I saw in this kind of like a manual that was called the Akron Manual that was created in like 1939 by some of the founders of AA. I think Dr. Bob Smith and someone else for that matter. And yeah, right, for real. 1939 is
Wait.
I'm bad at math, or I would do math. I don't even know how long ago that was.
In the 30s?
Yeah, 1939.
Well, I'm taking that back because I don't know how inclusive they were at that time. All right, continue.
And so it was a 12-page manual. I mean, it was on page 12 of a manual called the Akron Manual that was created in, I think this was actually in Canada, and it was something that they used, just kind of like the big book and all of that stuff like that. And this particular part of the document says, sobriety is the most important thing in your life without exception. And I was like, It says, you may believe your job, your home life, or one of the many other things come first, but consider if you do not get sober and stay sober, chances are you won't have a job, a family, or even sanity or life. I read that. I was like, dang, that's a lot of pressure. That's crazy.
First of all, let me put this out real quick right now. If you love AA, great. We love it for you. Okay? These are our opinions. Listen, and if you feel like you don't like the episode because you don't like what we're saying, that's totally fine. Turn off your podcast app and go do something else. It's okay? But these are our opinions. We're not saying this is law. We don't enforce these on our members. A lot of our members actually practice AA or some form of 12-step. Great. They like it. We love it for them. This is our opinion. Do not come into the inbox. Do not send me an email. I'm not responding. All right, Jay, take it away. Was that mean? I hope that wasn't too mean, but I'm just being honest. Don't send me emails or DMs about this episode. I'm not responding. All right.
Yeah, I think everything's gotta be a personal opinion as far as that. And again, like you said, we always feel like whatever's going to work for you to keep you sober, then that's what's most important. But I just came across it when I was just looking at different topics surrounding sobriety and just like some of the things, and it stuck out to me because it was at like the top of the Google page, and it was like sobriety is the most important thing in your life without exception. And I thought for myself, like how did I receive that? And I think what came up for me is that at some point in my life, that was the mindset, probably pretty much early on when I was trying to just like get sober, stay sober, not drink, stay away from it. I feel like it was more mind consuming for me. And so it became a priority. But just like as time has gone on, I don't know that so I agree with them in the sense that if in some people's cases, if you are not sober, then yeah, your home life, your job, your family, like all those things are probably not in the healthiest place if you are someone who needs to be sober and you're not. All those things are probably in shambles. But to say like it's the most important thing in your life without exception, I don't know. I think it's situational in that regard. But for me, I feel like at some point, yeah, it really was like, listen, like this is what I have to do because I need to be the best part of myself. But now, and maybe we can speak from two different points of it. It's many years later. It's my sobriety has just become synonymous with my life, so I don't really think too much about it. Like it's just a part of who I am, who I've become. So I don't see it that way. But I do feel like for some people, it can become real life or death in terms of the quality of your life. So you do have to put that as a priority and no exception. And that's how I remember when I was in AA in the beginning, it was like constantly just like meetings, service, meetings, service, sponsor talks, this. But again, I think everything is different for everybody. What's your thoughts?
I actually, surprisingly, agree with that. I agree with the statement. I understand what you're saying, though. I think sobriety and recovery are two different things. Like recovery per se is like actively working a program, and sobriety is just the act of abstaining. And I totally feel what you're saying, that you are in a stage of your life where like sobriety is synonymous with your life. I know there's some 12-step programs who say like if you're not working a recovery program, then you're working towards a relapse or something like that. I don't believe in that. I don't agree with that at all. But I do, for me, where I am in my life, like sobriety. Say the quote one more time.
No, definitely. No, yeah, no. Let's get it correct. So it says sobriety is the most important thing in your life without exception.
Yes. So where I am in my life, sobriety is the most important thing right now, without exception. Especially where I am right now, like mentally and like a little emotionally, nothing is like going on. I just like. Do you ever get those times where you're just like inwards, like you are like encountering or experiencing deep emotions, and it's like nothing is really happening, but it's just like you cannot control it. And for me, I just have learned to accept, like, one, we're in Pisces season, and I swear I do not like these water seasons, because this is when the universe really just gives me big emotions, and it wants me to like overcome them. Sometimes they're too heavy for me to like encounter, and I just really, like, last night I like spent like the whole 2-3 hours crying, and ask me what I'm crying about, I can't even tell you. I just feel like a deep sadness. So I say this to say that, like, because I'm still trying to like learn and navigate my feelings, like that is success for me. A successful life is when I truly understand, especially me being a very emotional, deep, sensitive person, like when I understand my emotions, triggers, and how to navigate them, because I'm still in this like journey of like, and again, someone asked me the other day, what does success mean to you? I'm like mastering myself, really getting to know myself in such a way that when I do encounter like these deep, hard feelings, I just know, Katie, just cry already. Just cry. Just get in the, just cry it out. Like, don't try to fight it. Don't try to eat it away. Don't try to like get on these useless dating apps and like talk it away. You know what I mean? Just face it. So where I am in my life, in my spiritual journey, like sobriety is what the quote again? I'm sorry.
Most important thing without exception.
Is the most important thing without exception, because I, at this point, am still really facing a lot of like big emotions, and the first thing I do want to do sometimes is drink. Like lately, when they're so heavy, like I don't know how to explain it, but when it's so heavy, it's like sitting in your stomach. I'm like literally looking for something to do to escape the feelings. And I know like drinking is not the answer, so I don't do it, but it doesn't mean I'm not like actively fighting, and it's not even a craving. It's just like I know if I like drink for that moment, this hard feeling is going to go away, and I'm going to go to sleep and wake up and even be 10 times worse, but in that moment it will go away. So I think that like I agree with you. I think we're saying the same thing. I think that like sobriety and recovery are two different things. I think that you are like 15 years, 13 years,
14.
14 years in the game. Like, sobriety is your life now. Like, you know what I mean? Sobriety is your life. So your life is the most important thing to you. So you're essentially saying that sobriety is also the most important thing to you. I think that, like, what you kind of talking about is like maybe a recovery program, and I do agree that not everyone has to be actively working a recovery program to stay sober, or if they're not, that doesn't mean they're gonna like relapse. Like, I don't really fully agree with that, but I do agree right now that sobriety is the most important thing in my life as I'm trying to like navigate my feelings and thoughts and the complexity of being me. All right, yeah.
No, that's so good. Like, first of all, you said so many things, and I agree. So that, let me, if that wasn't clear in the beginning, I do agree with what they're saying as far as sobriety being the most important thing in your life, no exception. I think that I was taken back that in 1939 they were coming that hard, where it was like, this is it, no exception, your life, your home, your job. Because I think a lot of times we do think that those other things take priority, our home, our job, our family, all of these things. But what they said is that if you aren't sober, then those things aren't going to be in order anyway. So I think it definitely is that way. Also, what I was trying to say is that I guess what I was trying to make clear too is I don't think about it every day. So it's not, it just has gotten to that point in my life where it's not even an option for me to drink, even though it always is. Of course, you can make that choice any day. But for me, it's always just one day at a time. It's just not, it just can't fit here. So I don't think that. But I do think that if you are trying to be sober and live a sober life, that it does have to, because just like anything else, we'll put our family first. We'll make excuses like, oh, I couldn't make it to a meeting because of this, or I wasn't able to do that because of this, and now my job was stressing me out, so now I had to take a drink, or, and so I think it will become like, those things will be able to become a crutch if you don't make that the priority. The other thing, what you were saying too, just about like the emotions that happen, for sure. I think just like the internal battles and just how like life is. There was on my Grief Bully show, I had an interview with a guy the other day, and he said something. He lost his brother in 2017. And he was saying that he doesn't remember 2018 and 19 because of drinking. His brother died in 2017. He was like, he just was drinking so much that he doesn't remember really until the pandemic happened. And then in 2020, you had to sit still, and all of this stuff just like you couldn't outrun it. And so you have so many different emotional battles where it's like, dang, it was okay to be sober or not drinking until those emotions start flooding you, or bad things, rocky times happen. So what do you do when those things happen? Like, how will you get through a moment like right now?
Well, I think for me, like the first two things I know to do, is definitely cry. Writing, journaling comes next, and then usually when those two, also like talking to a friend. Like, shout out to my friend Kyra. Like, yesterday, I just didn't. I was like delaying going home because I knew like once I got home, I was gonna have to like really, really, really face my emotions. And I have a friend here where we just talked, and it was really like helpful. Like when people tell me they're not a girl's girl or they don't have friends, I'm like, and maybe this sounds judgmental, I'm sorry, I just don't see how you can like navigate life without friends. Like, what? It just doesn't make sense to me. And I hope that doesn't sound me, because I know like some people do have like really genuine, really sad like friendship trauma. Like, I get it. But I really do wish and hope like friendship on people. If you're listening to this episode, I really truly do like wish friendship upon you, because to me that's definitely a tool. So when like crying, journaling, talking to a friend, when I've done those things and I still need to pick me up, that's when I go seeking pleasure. So like, I mean, I'm gonna rate this episode E for what is it? For explicit. I masturbate. I eat good food, like a seafood boil. What else do I do? I like probably would download an app and like just start talking to people, like just trying to seek pleasure, just trying to seek pleasure from like someone on the app. So yeah, usually like when I've done and finished doing all those like the I guess the again, the talking to a friend, writing and crying, then after I generally will try to seek pleasure to like just remedy the feelings that I have. And I also wanted to say that what I wanted to say. I wanted to say so sobriety is the most important thing in your life. Oh, okay. Can you read the second part of that quote? I know I forgot I
Well,
asked you to
so that first part was no exception after that, but then it says, you may believe your job, your home life, or one of many other things come first, but consider if you do not get sober and stay sober, chances are you won't have a job, a family, or even sanity or life.
Okay, so the problem I have with that part. So the first part, sober, is the most important thing. I can agree with that. I have a problem with that part because a lot of us, the reason why a lot of Black people, reason why it's hard to detect that we had. I don't know. For me, it was very hard to detect that I had an addiction because a lot of us are very functional, in our addiction. So like when it asserts that you'll lose your home and you'll lose this and that. A lot of Black people who experience addiction and depression and other mental illness, they know how to work through those things, and which is why they feel like they don't have an addiction. Because it's again, we say, well, I didn't lose my job, I didn't lose my home, and so I can see how that part is very problematic. Again, I even brought it up like a couple episodes ago in 2022 when they came up with an episode finally admitting that depression looks different on Black women than other demographics. Did you just figure this out? Of course it does. Of course it does. And this rides all the way back to slavery. And when folks say, well, were you enslaved? Are you out of your effing mind? Like, our parents carried on the practices and beliefs from their parents. So the mindset is still being passed on to us, even though we might not have experienced physical slavery. But during that time, our moms, our aunts, our sisters gave birth and still had to work and experienced so much violence. They did everything that women do today while they were experiencing harsh violence. And that mindset of like you can be going through A, B, and C, but you still have to work has been passed on to our generation, to us. That's why it's hard to accept that we might be experiencing depression, or we might be in addiction when we're watching TV and we're reading newspaper that only center white folks. And I'm gonna say it, they weren't raised under that mentality. They weren't, right. That meant they weren't raised under that mentality. It is what it is. So while what in New York, seeing a lot of houseless people, generally like white, hearing stories of addiction, people losing their houses and this and that, generally white. And when we're comparing our stories to them, and I'm not saying that Black people do not lose their jobs, houses. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that a lot of us who do experience addiction or any mental health illness, we generally, as for a very long time, can work through that. I've heard stories. I've had my own story of being in addiction and not even knowing that I was in addiction, because in my head I'm like, I don't look like them. And who was them? Them were white folks that I would see on TV, that I would just hear in my high school, just students who drank. They weren't me, and they definitely were not people who looked like me. So I can understand, in some, what I'm trying to say, I can understand how that second part is problematic, especially back in the day when they during their slavery time, we heard stories from W.E. Du Bois and Frederick Douglass and other civil rights leaders, right? Social activists who said that enslaved people were in addiction. They did face addiction, right? They were given alcohol from um, slavers, or whatever you want to call them. I'm not calling them masters, but the folks who enslaved them, they were given alcohol to keep them docile. However, do you think that an enslaved person who's facing addiction cannot go on the plantation and work? Do you think that they can just be laid out on the bed and say, oh, I can't go out today? No, they worked through that. They worked through their problems. They were being abused. That is depression. That's trauma. They still work through that. And again, that's why I feel like that mentality has been passed on to us. So it's not accurate to say, if you continue drinking, you're gonna lose this and that. I'm sure a lot of Black people who are in addiction, facing addiction, or any other mental health illness can still have their jobs, can still maintain their families, home, right? However, internally they're destroying themselves. Externally, they're destroying their families and their communities, and that has to be taken into consideration. And I'll stop there because I can go on and on and on and on. But I'm gonna stop there.
No, that was good. I mean, I think it's always a good educational thing to just like bring everything full circle and just see how certain mentalities can apply and not apply to us, to our community and what we've been through. I think that's something super important to talk about that because that's why I was saying I think what they said about the sobriety being the most important thing, but I do think that there are people who, like you said, they can just based on who we are can balance and maintain it. Eventually, sure, things do escalate, and like you said, you're not saying that no Black families didn't lose everything due to addiction because it's happening all the time. I know personally people who have lost everything and are currently now houseless and just doing whatever it is that they're doing because of their addiction and their choices. So for sure, but I do think that that's not going to apply to everybody. But if you are trying to find your way in sobriety, if you have made it and you find yourself falling back and forth, just because we can't really quiet the noise of life, and the only things that we really can control is ourselves. Even though sometimes, like maybe now, we feel out of control emotionally, but the reality is we do have the ability with the right skill sets, tools, and resources to center. But we can't control what our family is doing, what our job is doing, even just traffic. For some reason, that is one thing that, like, if you're talking to me, I can just go from 0 to 100 just for no reason. Like, and I've gotten better with it, but just small stuff like that you can't control what people are doing. I drive kind of slow. Let me just say this. So I'm like a super cautious driver, just for whatever reason. So usually, if I'm getting mad, it's because people are just doing nonsense, and I just whatever. The whole point is that we can control ourselves. We can't control those things. So if you are trying to become sober, stay sober, maintain sobriety, support someone in it, because we can have people who are listening maybe just to support other people in their life and not just themselves, then that decision should definitely become number one and the priority. And this is the other thing. If people in your life can't respect that, then that's where we have to put certain boundaries in place and call people out about that. Hey, to you might not see the importance of my sobriety. You might not understand why that's number one and why I can't do X, Y, and Z with you, but this is what it is for my life, like it or not. A lot of times, like in the Facebook group, I'll see people comment and I always try to like love the post or something like that. Hey, I put X amount of days together. I haven't been able to do that yet ever. So that's a win. So those are those times where it's like, this is crucial for me. And if you can't respect that, because I feel like for some reason people just give you guilt about drinking. It's like if I was like, yeah, I haven't, used certain drugs in a couple of days, like maybe it's like, okay, good for you. But if you're like, hey, I stopped drinking, it's like, oh, why'd you do that? Like it just, I don't know what that misconception is, but keep fighting. Don't let anybody knock you off your block for making that a priority for yourself.
Yeah, and I want to say like I feel like we've already said it and it's kind of like self-explanatory. So, but I just do want to still say it. Like, we're not saying that like if you are functional, we're not saying that you should continue drinking or
Oh no,
endorsing that
absolutely not.
you continue drinking. I think for me, like I think like for me, sobriety meant like creating a life that I don't have to escape from. Like it's
Whoa,
ending the
whoa, no,
cycle.
no, no. Say that again. Say that again. That's too much of a bar to just drop that and keep going. Sobriety for you.
Yeah, it's creating a life that I don't have to escape from, right? It's ending the cycle of drinking, right? And then enduring stomach pains, digestion pains, headaches, breakouts, joint aches, and just the hell of that cycle of that running on the cycle. And I think that should be the goal for many people. It's like, okay, what do I have to do to create the life that I don't need to escape from? And it's gonna look different from people to people, right? I definitely wanted to escape from that cycle, that non-ending cycle of like, so sobriety for maybe a couple of days and then drinking again, because that part was hell. And like when people say, you said your guest, he said something to the effect of he like kind of forgot what he was like doing for those 2 years that he was drinking. The truth is, for me, like when I would have like little stints of sobriety, the moment I drank, I forgot a lot of the things that I wanted to take note of. Like I mentioned earlier, a huge part of my sobriety was getting to know me, like my triggers, why I don't like this episode of this, or why does hanging out with this person trigger me, why can't I do this type of job. When I drank, I would forget all of the research I have done about myself while I was sober, and then have to restart again, right? And again, if the goal is to create a life we don't have to escape from, we're gonna have to stay sober to figure out what is it that's hurting us, what it is that's triggering us, what it is that's making us want to drink. So regardless if you still have a home and you still have your family and you still have a job, what good is that if you're miserable as hell? Like I don't know. I'm not gonna be miserable in sobriety. Hell no. I might as well pick up again. Well, I'm not gonna be miserable. And it doesn't mean that life is not going to happen. Yeah, there's certain life things that are going to happen. There's certain times where I'm just going to be hit with so many emotions. But I'm going to know how to address them. And I know, because I am sober, one of the many lessons I've learned in my sobriety, in my recovery life, is that these tough times don't last. They're very temporary. They come and they go. What prolongs them is drinking. It's drinking. That's what prolongs them, because now, again, I'm feeling hard emotions, drink, go to sleep, wake up. Now I feel anxiety 10 times harder. Now I feel depression 10 times harder. Now I'm thinking the worst about every single little thing, because that's just what my mind, this is an alcohol-induced depression, anxiety. So no way, shape, or form, if you think that like you can still maintain your home or your job, I guess if that's what's important to you, I mean, do you. But if what's important is you living a life, figuring out the little blocks that's gonna create the life that you want to live, I can't see how drinking is gonna be a part of that, especially when you're currently experiencing an addiction or substance use. Like I don't see it.
No, I love that. There's so many gems in there. Listen, we both agree. Sobriety needs to be the most important thing in your life, no exception, and just try to stick to that. Keep going back to that. One thing I want to say as we wrap up, you brought up this thought. I was having lunch with a customer the other day, and he was talking about someone that works in his warehouse in Canada that runs it. He goes, "Oh yeah, he's really mean. He's a real mean guy." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Yeah, because he's religious." And I was like, it like threw me through a loop. It's like, yeah, he's really mean. He doesn't get along with anyone because he's religious. And I was like, whoa, well, what do you mean by that? He was like, you know what I mean by that. And I was just like, so it made me think what you were just saying, that you don't want to be sobriety and be miserable. Like, we don't want these things that should be considered good aspects of you, however you view religion or spirituality. The fact that this person got a bad name based on something that society would, in most parts, at least put it in like a standard of, well, they're pretty good people, they're decent people. But no, it's not. People look at it like, oh, that person's religious, they're not good. Like, just because you have this certain thing, you still have to be a good person. So like if you're professing God, or if you're talking about I'm sober, or whatever the case is, then you just can't be those things and just like be a nasty person. Like, you don't want to just make these certain changes, whatever. It doesn't matter your perception on religion, your perception on whatever. Just like, don't just do something to say this is a part of who you are, but not really change who you are, is what I'm trying to say. Like, make sure you change your heart as well to match whatever title or new part of your new level or event aspect of your life. Did that make sense? I hope so. But yeah, it kind of made me think about that when you said that.
It definitely makes a lot of sense, and I'm gonna get into it for a little bit. Even going up, first of all, they said that's a pastor's kid, so I know you was like, "Girl, God, what are you talking about?" Anyways, as a person who used to be very religious, shout out to my Muslimas. It's Ramadan is coming up. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be very. We have to talk about the schedule because I might be
I did see Ramadan on the schedule, and I was like, "Oh, we're there again."
um, but one thing, and I'm slowly finding my way back to God in a way that I truly feel connected. But one thing that like made me stop my relationship with God for a bit during my addiction, and then after, even like while I was in recovery, was just realizing that, oh my gosh, I've been surrounded with all these people who claim Islam, pray 5 times a day, do this and that, and their actions are despicable. They're violent. They're abusive, right? And it's not just Muslims. Like growing up in the Catholic Irish Church and how our teachers used to speak to us, our principal, like, oh my gosh, she was like hell on heels, like yelling constantly. They didn't reflect the teachings of the Bible or of the gospel or of the Quran, right? So I can understand why. I mean, I think it's kind of silly just to hear that somebody's religious and then be like, oh, they're a bad person. I feel like maybe like their actions is what, like, their actions is what made that person who said that to you make the
Yeah, it was
reference.
actions. Yeah, it was his actions.
It was actions, right? And you brought up a really, really good point of why I always say that I don't like. I'm sorry, just doing, in my opinion, doing 12-step alone, doing any recovery program that does not assess beliefs and thoughts of white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism, sexism, homophobia, cannot transform you to be a good person. If if before your addiction you were especially practicing a lot of those beliefs, and I feel like we all did at some time, just because of how society is. I used to practice anti-blackness, not knowing that it was anti-blackness, right? Not understanding that what I was doing, it's just like what I was taught. I was taught lighter is better. I was taught like this type of hair is better. And just doing a recovery program alone that does not address um the teachings and the practice and the beliefs that made us feel like that we weren't worthy, that made us treat other people like they weren't worthy, is not enough. And I can say, for example, Chef Ray, I don't know if you heard about the Chef Ray dude.
In the guy in the wheelchair dude.
No. So Chef Ray,
Oh
long
no,
story
that's
short,
Roland.
who?
That's Roland Ray. That's a different person.
Not Roland Ray. What the All right, anyways, no, I'm talking about Chef Ray, and let me break this down a little bit for you. Long story short, and don't quote me on like the specifics of the facts leading up to my opinion. Like, I wasn't on the story like really hard. I just know the general facts of it. This guy was on Twitter for a couple of years, harassing black girls, harassing fat girls. Long story short, he took a break from Twitter. He came back years later as a lawyer and a chef Way, right? And the girls that he used to harass realized, like, wait, wasn't this guy who was harassing us like years back? Because now it's social media era, everyone wants to rebrand. And he got calls out, lost sponsorships, blah 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 blah. He eventually even lost his job at the DA's office. And think about, well, before I get to that, let me not even go on a rampant. So when that happened, he released a statement that pissed me the F off. He basically said that he was in addiction at the time that he was harassing those black women and fat girls. He said that doing a 12-step program, laughable, and cooking is how he changed his views. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? Where in the 12 steps do they talk about racism and anti-blackness? They don't even mention black people. They hardly mention even women. How does cooking, first of all, and let's be very clear, drinking does not make you racist. You've had those beliefs before you were drinking. Mm-hmm. Drinking just makes you put it out there, and it affects how you act and the way you basically show people your values and your beliefs. And his whole apology was so upsetting because I know the fact that he's a DA, he is anti-black. I don't think that has changed. That's my opinion. I don't think that has changed at all. The fact that like we have this person who really hasn't told us how he's changed his views of why he thought that black girls are like ugly and worthless and less than, all his negative energy that he had towards black girls. He didn't explain in that apology the work he's done to like unlearn that. And you were the DA in charge of people's lives and their freedom after a lot of backlash. Finally the DA's office, you know, gave him the boot. But even his boss, which is a white woman, talking about he's reformed, he's like changed, now that he's in sobriety, pish posh. I don't know if that's even what I'm trying to say, but F out of here. That's so like, are you nuts? Absolutely not. And I'm not mad at the fact that like yes, I'm mad at the fact that he harassed those black girls, but the truth of the matter is a lot of us, you know, not to that extent. I don't know what you were going through to make you like, you know, try to just harm people in such a abrasive and obnoxious way, like seek help. But the fact, I could have accepted the fact that like, yeah, he was anti-black, you know, he was, you know, fat phobic, he was violent towards black women, but hey, he's doing what he needs to do to unlearn and become a better person, right? I like, if he would have just addressed why he had those views, and you know, again, drinking does not make you anti-black. You've had those views way before you started drinking. Again, just drinking just made you practice them, or yeah, display your views in a way where you didn't care, like you didn't give a F. I can understand that, you know, but like you took no accountability, no responsibility for the harm that you did. And then to say that doing a 12-step program made you change your views, you out of your mother effing mind. You are out of your mind. And I'll leave it at that. I feel like I already said what I had to say. Out of his mind.
No, yeah, no, that's crazy. And that's the thing too. It's like when people do certain things and certain behaviors and they just like blame it on that. Like, oh, I was in addiction, or oh, this program helped me. But like how? Like how did it help you? Like what work did you actually do? And how can you even use that as an excuse that just now like changes who you are? And again, I do think people can change, but not when you don't take accountability or explain like how the change actually like happened. And that is kind of scary to be a DA with that kind of like background or mindset as well.
Like, let's be real. Like, I feel like a part of recovery is being honest. I've been honest about like my anti-blackness, my fat phobia, my honestly sometimes homophobia too. Like, I you know, it wasn't until I started reading a lot from Bell Hooks and Audre Lorde and this, that I was like, oh my gosh, like I had to see how these beliefs were not only hurting other people, also hurting myself, because I was hating myself, right? Now that I can say I'm a black queer woman, I realized that I had a lot of these views and beliefs that made me probably treat other people horribly, but also treat myself horribly, and I had to come to terms with that. About power dynamics, I wanted to have on other people at work or at school, wanting to be the only black girl doing certain things, wanting to be a token. What is your recovery if you're not admitting, unlearning, and relearning? Like, what the F are you doing besides, like, again, like we said before, still being a horrible person? Now you're just a horrible person who don't drink. And that's why I'll end it by saying this, because I could go on and on, but I'm gonna say this. That's why a lot of, should I say this? Yeah, I'm gonna say it. That's why a lot of people, you know, we were just talking about this last week in a meeting about why, for me, 12 steps was, yeah, because another thing is because of the power dynamics, right? And I'm coming from a place where I don't want my worth to be dependent on like what I have more than you, regardless of it's sobriety, money, cars. Like, no, that's how I was living before, and it led to my demise. I'm a little dramatic, but you get what I'm saying, right? So I'm not going back there. And with the 12 steps, I realized that like I would have potential sponsors or people who just have more time than me, like think they can talk down to me or or act like I didn't have any autonomy over my life. Girl, I'm not boo-boo the fool just because I'm drinking. Like, do you want me to tell you all my degrees? And yes, I can. I'm not an idiot, okay? I'm actually very smart. And just because some people have an addiction doesn't make them dumb. It doesn't mean that they lose their autonomy. And I found myself talking a lot about, like, letting people know, like, listen, I'm not a fool. Like, I'm actually training. And I hate that. I feel like I shouldn't have to tell you that, like, listen, ma'am, I'm not an idiot. You're not going to talk to me like I'm an idiot. These are my credentials for me to feel like you are actually giving me respect. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to move away from that of, like, just people wanting to control other people. And for me, and again, it doesn't mean I didn't have mentors. I have sober mentors now. I have people who are living the life that I want to live, and it's not about the material things per se. It's about how they treat people, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about their purpose in the world. And my experience in the 12-step realm was a lot of, I have this, I have that, and if you want this, you're gonna listen to me. B, no, I'm not. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't want to live your life. Like, you look lame as hell to me. And to me, again, lame is when you are trying to, I feel like, give yourself importance by dominating me or by being in control of me, telling me what to do, when to sleep, when to this, not. What does this look like? I'm not an idiot. And again, that's that cultural, and I do think it's a cultural difference of, like, Black people are functional, even when we're in distress because of our past and the violence that we encounter. Like, what I don't need right now, I don't. And because, again, our story's different, I feel like, especially when I was going to 12-step meetings, and I still go, let's be very clear and real, where, like, I'm hearing a lot of, like, yeah, I was, my dad used to give me drinks when I was 12 and 13. Maybe I shouldn't have used that voice because that's kind of insensitive. But when people are being like, or when people are being like, I did this, and that's not how I came into addiction, right? I didn't start drinking until I was 21, became a lawyer, realized I hated myself, realized that I wasn't happy with myself, and then I started drinking. So our stories are not the same. And what I don't need is more structure. What I do need is to come into terms with who I am and be okay with being who I am, and forget the idea that I have to, like, mold myself to fit, society, family. Now you want me to come to this program and now try to fit what you think I should be? That's not what I need per se. I don't know how else to tell you that. It's not gonna work. And then don't even get me started, on even, like, the predatory men in there. People who are quote unquote trying to help you, but kind of, like, being predatory, like inappropriate. Again, that's hierarchy. That's saying, like, listen, I have this many years, or I have this position in this club, or I have, like, in this homeroom, or I have this and that, and because I have this, not because I'm a good person, not because I'm nice, not because I volunteer, not because I've done anti-racism work, not because I've helped people at the shelter, but because I have these many years and I have this car in this house, you need to listen to me. F out of here. I'm not listening to you. And again, it doesn't mean I don't have mentors. I have mentors. I have people who I go to for advice because I don't know everything. And I'm trying to navigate my life in a way, again, that I don't have to escape from. And those are the people I'm going to follow. I'm going to follow their actions and their advice and, what they tell me, not you. And that's what I got to say.
We got to end it right there. That was a lot of good. Like, that, this conversation had to wake so many people up in so many different aspects, and just to look in the mirror, look at yourself, see what you're doing. What are you even on this journey for? Don't define that by somebody else. Don't get caught in a rat race, somebody's perception of you or your sobriety journey, what you have to do. Like, do what you got to do. This is one of those episodes where you're going to just replay it back and be like, wait, what was she saying about this? What were they saying about that? And definitely, we hope it can help you in some way. Katie, that's all I got today. You got anything else before we get out of here?
Yes, if you enjoy this episode, if you enjoy the resources of Sober Black Girls Club, make sure you are supporting us in ways that help the club, grow the club, enrich the club. make a donation, and I'm going to be really pushing that more often. Like, I finally, I know that you're like, girl, I know I asked for this, but oh well. I finally started to seek a mentor to help me with the club. And one thing that we do need to start pushing more is to keep our resources free and accessible to the people who are listening to the podcast, who come to the meeting, who come to meetups, workshops, is by donations and other stuff too. If you know a company or organization that goals align with the club, or they're trying to do community work and work with organizations like Sober Black Girls Club, send them our way. Let's create a partnership. But yeah, if you like this episode, definitely drop a donation. Nothing is too small. Nothing is definitely too big, but definitely nothing is too small. Even if we got $1 from every listen for each episode, our monthly expenses would be paid. How amazing!
How can we donate? Is there going to be a link, or is there a Cash App, or a like what's the best way to donate?
Yeah, I mean, right now we have PayPal and Cash App, and you can find that like on our link tree or our website. Again, one of the things that we're working towards now is like applying for grants and getting money. So we want to update our website, have a membership portal, just really update and upgrade what we're doing in many ways. But the website right now, if you go on the website, you see the PayPal link. A nonprofit should not just have that link. It should be something more cohesive and extensive, and that's why we need to really be pushing for more donations, so we can match the work that we're doing, like our external factors, our external look, we're not joking, but the external look can match a lot of the internal things that we're doing. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, y'all. I think I'm done.
Yeah, thanks for listening, y'all. And that information will be in the show notes. So definitely make sure you tap in, share the love. Till next time. Peace.
Bye, y'all. I don't know why I just put that peace sign because of you.
I'm glad. I wanted you to say bye, y'all.
All right, let me stop recording.